So it's a very exciting time. And you know, in here in Michigan, where we often see maybe 1 or 2 deer, and often it's like a 6-point or a lesser buck, now you're seeing bigger bucks and you're seeing more. You know, I remember in an area where I normally see 1 or 2 bucks, I seen 8 that day. So now is the time to get out there and enjoy this. But again, exercise scent control. Even though you can't control everybody else, you know, I know it's another chore, and sometimes people will maybe wash their clothes and then they'll just not wash their clothes again until it's like wintertime or muzzleloading or something. You know, you want to go about every 4 or 5 hunts at the most, you know, change your clothes. If you have carbon clothing, which I recommend, you know, activate it in the dryer every 3 to 4 hunts. It's gonna make a big difference. Just like camouflage. We don't go out there in blue jeans because the camouflage makes a difference. The scent control makes a difference. Even though it doesn't make us invisible, it makes a difference. And when you're gonna be going into bedding areas, because that's what bucks are doing, they're scent checking the downwind side of these bedding areas. They're running these funnels, especially when it hits November. Things continue to charge up and they go more and more until, you know, it starts to peak here in Michigan right around first week of November. And then the second week of November it starts to go down, and basically the rut is still going by gun season. And in gun season, several bucks are taken opening day. And that really shuts down deer movement. I mean, overnight here in Michigan. So really take advantage of this bow season here in the next 2 to 3 weeks and get out there. You know, even take some days off work if you have them available, because this is the best time of the year. You know, often hunters will go out there and maybe harvest a doe, and they get burned out too early trying to chase bucks before they're really ready. And you know, I've kind of been staying out of the woods because, like I said, the longer you hunt, kind of the less you hunt, because you know better. Just like these bucks, these mature bucks have been around the block, and they know not to come out until it's finally ready, when all the does start popping, and then they start coming out, and that's why they're rubbing on all the branches and the trees and leaving their scent out, because they know it's almost time. But the younger bucks get started early, and so try not to get burned out too early and strike when the iron's hot. Continue to rotate your stands and hunt these rub lines and scrapes and staging areas right up to about the last few days of October into November. That's when you're hunting these stands every day for 2 to 3 days, and then rotating them and continuing to move around. And if you're hunting an out-of-town hunt, you know, I mean, be sure to have your kit ready. You've got an extra stand, maybe a ground blind. You have small snacks. You have some toilet paper. You'll thank me later. Leaves. Ouch. If you're not seeing deer, you have to change the game plan. Break out your topography maps, break out your satellite photos, find these pinches and these funnels in these swamps and these nasty areas, and maybe consider going where, you know, you just hadn't gone before. Don't scout in the morning and muck up somebody's hunt. You know, go in the middle of the day. And when you're walking through the woods, even this time of year, when you're going into the woods in the afternoon and when you're scouting in the afternoon, always carry your trigger release. I always go in with my rangefinder around my neck. I even have my GoPro on my strap. And I've learned to do this because too many encounters when I see deer running by me as I'm making my way out to the woods, because they're just running everywhere. So be ready, because I remember a couple years ago, 2 does ran right by me at 5 yards. And it was right around this little swale. So this buck's running around this corner and couldn't see me until he got around this little hill behind this hill. And he runs right at me and stops, and I'm leaning up against this tree. I was actually going through my backpack, and he stopped at 5 yards, and I'm at full draw, and he was just a little too small to harvest. And but what an easy 5-yard shot at full draw, and I just let down, and he blew and ran off. And I'm so glad that he ran off in the direction that he did, because a whitetail looks huge when you're down on one knee. I didn't want him to run right over me. If you're gonna get into these bedding areas, just be very careful. Try not to, you know, go in there with stinky clothes, and try not to overhunt it and walk circle after circle every day, because you're just gonna blow them out. And these are really good areas. And if you find scrapes in there, be sure to get in there and hunt these areas. You know, scouting midday is ideal, and even when it's windy or rainy, be careful not to climb or do too much, you know, setting up or tearing down, because it's going to be slippery. But this is going to suppress your movement and your noise. Remember, this time of year, bucks will be moving and scent checking from 10 to 2 p.m. This is often when the deer hunters are out of the woods, they're back at the bar or the diner having lunch, maybe they're even taking a nap, and then they go out for the afternoon hunt. You know, especially when there's a full moon and it's clear, then this is going to suppress movement at night, and this is going to make bucks walk around more in the afternoon. So this is a good time to go in there for a midday hunt And consider going in around 9 a.m. and hunting from the afternoon from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can recharge your body, you can get some rest, and you can also get a crack at a good one. So in the previous video I talked about scents and how I don't use a lot of scents, but I have harvested buck urine. When I kill a big buck, you can actually cut the urine sac, pour it into a bottle it. You can actually take the tarsal glands, you can take them, put them in freezer Ziploc bags, mark them, date them, write them down what they are, because you can have doe tarsal glands and you can have buck tarsal glands, and you can actually drag them around your stands this time of year. Last week of October, first 2 weeks of November especially are going to be great for doing this. In most cases I'm hunting over natural scent. I'm using licking branches and scrapes and in areas where bucks or deer have already deposited their scent. But this is an effective way to spend $0 and get a scent trail down that can hook a buck and bring them in. So just be careful again to use scent control and try to stay scent free. Once you leave the scent where 20 yards away from your stand where you want the shot placement to be sure to leave all that scent. Don't take it with you up into the stand. You gotta maybe take those gloves off and Ziploc those bags too, because if you're gonna be touching anything, you don't want that smell to be coming from up in the tree. In the previous video I talked about rattling, and the rattling that's shown on videos often is just unrealistic in the areas that you're hunting, and smashing together antlers over and over and over again. If anything, you may even spook the deer away to some other property. So just less is more, and you can do a light sequence with a rattle bag. You can take out some light antlers. Another cool way to rattle, when you pull your bow up with your toe strap, tie on some antlers, drop them back down, sit there and jig the string up and down, and it's gonna land on the leaves, it's gonna land on the ground, it's gonna sound like the bucks are scuffing up, and it's gonna lightly rattle those antlers together for you, and it's gonna be down on the ground, it's gonna be realistic. But the only problem is, if a lesser deer or some does come in, they may walk up to that toe strap, they may come up to those antlers and smell them, and they may spook. Hopefully, if your target animal comes in, you'll be able to harvest that animal before it walks up to those antlers. But I just wanted to mention that because that's a cool way to rattle. I've noticed a light pair of antlers from a 1.5-year-old buck works great. I shot a 7-point. 20 years ago I've had these antlers, and they're lightweight. I strap them to the side of my backpack with a little clip. They're even lighter than a rattle bag, so that's why I recommend those. And they're not gonna spook or be unrealistic in pressured areas. This time of year is when I'm rattling and I'm grunting. I take out my grunt call. I like to use the True Talker, but there's lots of good calls out there. I like Primo's, it's got the snort wheeze tube. These are good calls. Some work even better than others. Some work better in cold temperatures. I like the True Talker because it doesn't seem to freeze. Some of those smaller calls will freeze. They'll just, all of a sudden you sound like a fawn bleat when you're trying to use your grunt. So test them out. Be sure to take out, I like the True Talker, and I'll link one down below. It's a very old, tried and true grunt call, and it works great. If I see a deer walking by and it's in the distance, I'll grunt to get its attention, but when it turns and looks, do not grunt again, because it'll be able to figure out that there's no deer making that. Unless there's a blowdown or something where the deer could possibly be behind that, I wouldn't grunt or make a lot of noises. Now, same thing with rattling. If you rattle and you see a buck coming in, don't continue the rattling. Antlers down and get your bow and get ready. I don't want the bucks to come in on high alert, so I don't make a lot of calls like that. Usually I'm set up in an area where I already think the deer are gonna come through anyway. I do always have my antlers in my call just in case I need to entice a deer to come in out of curiosity, but in most cases I'll just let the deer come through. Most of the season, decoys will spook deer. Late season, early season, does will come in, they're gonna blow, they're gonna stomp, and this is gonna spook all the deer out. And you know what, that's always unfortunate. Even this time of year, late October time, I'll use a doe. November, I'll use a buck with one antler. One antler because, a buck's not gonna get spooked to come in. And in many cases, the buck will come in head on to the buck. So I like to point the buck either at 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock, pointing at me. The buck will come in facing that buck, or sometimes the buck will come in and just ram it from the side. Make sure that decoy is scent free, spray it down. I own the Carry Light decoy. It comes with a carrying strap. If you're gonna be using this stuff on public land, be very careful. Be sure to carry it out with orange-ons. You can also use a tarsal gland. Some people use a doe decoy and a buck decoy. This is gonna be realistic, and you can bet them down about 25 yards, again, facing you. You know, the best advice that I can give anybody is just get out there this time of year. You know, your chances go up so much if you're just out in the woods, and if you can get up early, mornings tend to be a little bit better. Morning hunts are incredible because you can see, the shots are clear, they seem to last really long, and there's a lot of movement. Afternoon hunts are good too, but they tend to be in low light conditions and they just seem to be shorter. Usually they're a little bit more comfortable. They're not as cold, and you can see they're easier to get out there. So, you know, they both have their pros and cons. Get out there this time of year because you can't shoot them from the couch, but at the same time, hunt smart. Don't just go out there blindly and come back with poison ivy and a broken body. So I recommend both approaches. You know, if you're young, you may want to just hunt, and if you're old, you may want to hunt when it's right. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them down below. I'll get back to everybody. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope you shoot a deer that you're proud of.